there, guys, Bloodstainedfur here, and I just want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. And a 1 and a 2 and a 3, hit it! Silent night, holy night. Wait a minute. Something's not right here. Oh, Halloween! Right, of course, duh!
Happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween.
Yes, it is indeed a very, very happy Halloween. And just in the slightest chance that it isn't clear to anyone watching this video, Halloween is indeed my favorite holiday of the year. Even though technically it's not an official holiday. I mean, we don't get off of school or work for it or anything else like that. Not really sure why, but oh well, I love it anyway. So I thought that I would celebrate the holiday by doing a review of a horror movie. So there actually were a lot of scary movies that came out this month. But which one to review? That is a stumper. Well, I could always do Paranormal Activity 4. I kind of Silent Hill Revelations in 3D. I tend to shy away from 3D movies. Yeah, they don't really turn me on that much. It's just not my cup of tea. So what can I do? Oh, I know! Sinister! Yeah, let's review that one. So my nieces first told me about this movie when they saw it as a preview when they went to go see The House at the End of the Street. Or Last House on the Left, or whatever the heck it's called. The one with Jennifer Lawrence. You know, the one with the girl from The Hunger Games, Katniss, yeah. I didn't see the film, but whatever. But they told me about it, and so naturally I was interested in it. I looked it up on YouTube or IMDb or one of those sites, and I saw the trailer. And yeah, it looked very, very intense, very scary. But the problem that I had right away with the trailer for this film is it seemed to give a lot away. And it did. It did give a lot away. A lot of the scares, a lot of the creepiness from the trailer spoiled a lot of the good scares in the movie because I knew what was going to happen. Sure, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but when it did, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that from the trailer. But I know it's the trailer's job to entice the audience, to bring them in there, because it's very hard to do that these days, especially with a horror film. You got to up it up a bit, you know? And so you got to really capture their interest in it. And in order to do that, you have to give away some of the spoilers. So let's go into the plot of the movie without going into too much spoiler territory. But there will be minor spoils. So be aware that the flashing red lights are going off right now. But like I said, I'll try to keep the spoilers to an absolute minimum. If I can. Okay. But you've been warned. So I have to tell you, going into this film, if you have no idea what it's going to be about or what you're in store for, believe me, after like the first minute or so, you will know exactly what you're in store for. I mean, the opening scene, the opening shot just makes me go, oh boy, it's gonna be one of those kind of movies, you know? And I'm not saying that like it was really graphic or anything. It was just very, very disturbing, very, very creepy. One of the greatest things about this film is it has great atmosphere. And that's something that's very unfortunately missing from so many horror films today, because most of them are remakes to begin with, and yeah, I hate remakes for the most part. Or, you know, they're just so fast paced, there isn't enough time to get scared, and when we do get scared, they're just jump scares, and jump scares, that doesn't get you scared, it makes you jump. There's a big difference between jumping and actually getting scared. And what this film has really gets you scared, or at least it did for me. So yeah, in order to have that though, you need to have atmosphere. Really creepy, suspenseful atmosphere. And I have to say, this is one of the first films in a long time that has done that very, very well. So the film stars Ethan Hawke, who is a critically acclaimed crime novelist who is trying to make another big break. You know, he had one successful book that he published a long time ago, and that was pretty much like his 15 minutes, and then he had a couple of lackluster books after that, and he got a bad rap with the police and everything because of misinterpreting facts as they were, and, you know, he's not very popular amongst a lot of people now, so he needs another big hit, and so he moves his family into this house where a murder happened. Actually, a bunch of murders happened. But yeah, so he moves them in there. Of course, his family is completely unaware of the fact that they're living in a house where a family got murdered. Yeah, only he knows that, and that's going to come back to massively bite him in the butt later on in the film. But yeah, doesn't it always, though? So after getting settled into their new, fun house, Ethan Hawke goes up into the attic and finds this old box of Super 8 films. And naturally, he's curious, so he takes it down to his little private office where his family is not allowed into because that's where he's doing all of his criminal investigating. So it turns out that one of the tapes has footage of the family that used to live in the house before they did. And here's where things get really interesting. Actually, I think this is the best part of the whole film. This is the part of the film that has the best atmosphere, the best suspenseful elements that make this film really what it is. You know, this whole found footage thing, of course, had been made popular with Paranormal Activity, and that film was highly suspenseful. It worked very well, and Sinister really seemed to capture the essence of what that film had very well and embodied it again very well in this film. So as Ethan Hawke is watching the footage, it starts off as like just home movies, like the family playing in the backyard, just having a great, you know, event, just being themselves. And then abruptly we cut to their grisly demise, you know, like, oh my god, what the heck happened there? It's just really startling and very unexpected. It's very frightening. And it turns out that's not the only film that was in the box that Ethan Hawke had found. So he puts in another one and sees another family that lived somewhere completely different. And again, it starts off with them doing a little family event, and one of them, I think it's a family barbecue. Another one, they're having like a pool party. Another one, they're just relaxing in their living room, just doing whatever it is they do. And then it cuts to the family being brutally murdered on film, and it's like, oh my god, this is horrible. But the thing is this film is not very graphic. It's more suspenseful, and that's one of the elements I like so much about it, is it didn't need to show you the blood and guts because you knew what was going on. But again, it's a mystery as to who is filming this and who is committing these grisly murders. And Ethan Hawke at first is horrified and wants to call the authorities and then give the footage to them, but then he begins to think, wait a minute, this is the big, you know, hit that I need. If I can solve these murders myself and find out what all happened here, then I can be famous again, you know. And of course, you know, we can kind of sympathize from why he wants to do it, because he wants to, you know, make good with his family and give him a better place to live and everything, you know, and that nice happy ending that they've been wanting for. So we kind of sympathize from him, but at the same time, in the back of our minds, we're going, what an idiot! So as he continues watching some of the footage, he makes a startling discovery. In one of the tapes, he sees this ghoulish figure of this character, this demon, watching the murders taking place. And when you first see it in the movie, it scares the crap out of you because it's so subtle. It's not like it just jumps out in front of you. It's just the camera kind of pans over, and there he is, and it's like, oh my god, you know. And that's what makes this film work so well, is it does have a lot of jump scares in it, and you know, and I always hate those because those aren't meant to be scary. They're made to make you jump, and when you jump, yeah, you laugh and go, oh, I can't believe I jumped at that. But you know, this film doesn't tend to do an overabundance of it. Again, it works more so with setting you up, the great suspense moments, and this film has a lot of those. And I think that's the best element of this film, is when Ethan Hawke is watching these found footage tapes. So after doing a little bit of research, he discovers that this entity that is appearing in all the tapes is a demon called Bagul. Yeah, it sounds kind of cheesy, but actually it's pretty cool. Or Mr. Boogie. So I'm guessing he's supposed to be like the boogeyman or something like that. And he slowly realizes that he's conjured up this evil spirit, and now it's after him and his family. Oh no, what to do? So yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about the plot without giving away any spoilers. I mean, there's a few twists here and there throughout the film, and I don't want to go into that too much. So let's go into behind the scenes of the film and see how they did. The film was directed and co-written by Scott Derrickson, who already made his name very well known in the horror field with his 2005 horror hit, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So looking back at it now, one of the things that this film does so well is it leaves an impression on you. It doesn't rely on a bunch of cheap scare tricks. I mean, it does have them, but the movie doesn't sell that. And it doesn't have blood and guts, or at least, yeah, not an over-excessive of it. It's very, very, very tame. In fact, I don't even think this film was rated R. Okay, well, maybe it is, but it's a very, very mild rated R. There were two main elements for me that made this film work as well as it did. Number one was the music. The great atmospheric music, especially when he's watching the tapes. The music there is just so suspenseful and so disturbing that you don't need to see the blood and guts because it already makes your skin crawl and you just feel so uncomfortable, but in an entertaining kind of way because you know it's not real, but it's still very creepy. And again, there have been very few horror films that have come out in recent years that have really creeped me out, and I have to say that this is definitely one of them. In fact, as I'm sitting here recording this review, I'm kind of creeped out, looking over my shoulder thinking that Bagul is going to be right there. Yeah, it still creeps me out a little bit, okay? And if you see the film, you'll probably think the same way, so stop making fun of me. And the second one is Ethan Hawke's performance. This guy pretty much carries most of the movie. There's a good chunk of the film where he's just sitting in the dark by himself, watching these Super 8 films and trying to piece together everything. And a lot of it is just in his facial expressions, how he's reacting to everything. And I have to say, this guy does a great job of making you believe everything he's seeing is real. You identify with him, you care about him, he feels like a real guy, and you care what's going to happen to him and his family. This isn't your typical slasher film where all these characters are just set up to die, and you just couldn't give a damn less when their death scene actually happens. You just want it to be bloody and gross. In this film, you actually want him to survive. You want his family to be alright. But it's a horror film, so that's not going to happen. So it could have a happy ending, you never know. Sometimes they do have a happy ending. Sometimes. Now, that's not to say that the film doesn't have its faults, because it does, but they are very far and few in between. The ending is a little abrupt. I wasn't expecting it to end as quickly as it did, which is good and bad, because a lot of times in horror films, they like to drag out the ending, and then you're like, come on, get to the end already, and then it finally happens, you're like, thank God, that totally was not worth it. In this case, though, they don't do that. They kind of get to it really quick, which, again, is kind of surprising because the film is very well paced. And then when it gets to the last act, it just kind of goes boom, 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 boom really quick, and then it's over. And you're like, huh, okay. And that seems to be a problem with a lot of scary movies. It's a lot of them in more recent years have a really good kind of build-up, a good setup, and then it kind of falls short towards the end. Of course, this has been an issue that's happened in all sorts of films of every genre, not just horror films. But all in all, though, it doesn't hurt the film that much. So it becomes a little predictable, but that's not really the film's fault because there isn't really too much originality in films these days, least of all in horror films. So for what it's worth, it did a great job. I will say that the ending does, of course, set it up for a sequel, just like every other film these days, which again is not a bad thing because with the whole mythology of the character Bagul, it would make sense to have a sequel. The pattern that follows with the murders in this film, I'm not going to say what it is because it is kind of cool when you find out what the connection is. But it makes sense, and it seems like an endless kind of cycle, I will say that, what Bagul does to these families. So I would like to very much see a sequel, maybe get more backstory with the demon, but then again, your monster, your villain in horror films is only as scary so long as you don't see them so much, as they're kept in the shadows, you don't know anything about them. That's the key to every really good, successful, scary monster or villain in a movie. And the more you reveal about them, the more you show of them, the less frightening and intimidating they are. And that's one of the reasons why I think Bagul worked very well, is you saw very little of him. When you did see him, he scared the crap out of you because it was very quick all the time. And 3, he never talked. But yeah, I'd be happy if there was a sequel. Not like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 of them, but I would like to see maybe 1 or 2 more. Sure, that'd be great. All in all, I really thoroughly enjoyed this film. Delivered the goods, and it did a great job of staying with me long after I left the movie theater. There are some films you go to see these days where you like it while you're watching, and then you leave the theater, a couple hours go by, and you forget, oh yeah, what movie did I go see again today? Oh yeah, that one. But Sinister is one of those films that I think is going to stay with you after watching it, and that's the point of a horror film, is to creep you out. And this is one of those films where it didn't necessarily scare me in the movie theater, but after I went home and was trying to go to bed that night, I'm like quickly darting around looking at every, shadow and every little noise in the house going, what was that? Is that Bagul? Mr. Boogie? Is that you? And if a horror film can have that kind of effect on you, then obviously it did its job, and it did it very well. And I think Sinister did a great job of that. All in all, very good acting as well. Great atmosphere, amazing music, and I really enjoyed it. If you have time this Halloween season, do check it out. I assure you it's a treat and not a trick.